coming from a place of contribution. You've helped us, and I'm helping you now.
That's terrific, brother. I love it, man. I appreciate it. And it's special to be your first, Mike.
And I feel special too to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. Yeah, feelings mutual. So I guess we could just jump right in. Like how, if you could explain for the guests, how long have you actually been in this real estate game, man?
I've been in the game a long time. So I started in 95, so 25 years ago. Just simply stumbling into the industry as a part-time agent. You know, I had a full-time job in the city. I never thought I'd be in real estate, never planned to be in real estate, but I just decided I wanted to get into it, make an extra 200 or so a month to help, pay my car lease at the time. That was the goal. That was the goal.
That's awesome. So the goal is just an extra $200 a month.
Right.
Pay for the car lease.
Exactly. That was the goal.
That is awesome. And then as time progressed, you transitioned from kind of an active agent, and you had a lot of success as an active agent, and then transitioned into kind of broker owner of Liberty Realty. Is that right?
Yeah. The 200 a month, that happened pretty quickly. And then, as you can imagine, then my goal was 200 a week. Then it was 200 a day, as a part-timer. And then things happened quickly. About 6 years later, Joe Novello, who's the president of Liberty Realty, great guy, we decided we wanted to open an office in downtown Jersey City. And he told me that I'd be the right person for the job. So pulled me out of the city, and I jumped right into managing, being a broker in 2001 for our Jersey City office. We were one of the first offices down in Jersey City as well.
That's terrific, man. So then it sounds as though you've been in that broker kind of owner capacity for an equally long period of time. I mean, it's been like 18 years, 19 years, right?
Right. Going 19 years now. Yeah. Feels like a lot longer.
So, and I guess I'm curious, being that you have this unique perspective, right? I share with people, I have this unique perspective of not only being an active practicing real estate agent, right? Being kind of listing properties every day, getting price adjustments, negotiating offers. But I also coach people, about 38 throughout the country. And so I'm on not only a player on the field, but also kind of like a coach on the sideline, watching people play. And it sounds like you've kind of been in both of those capacities as well. So being kind of now watching other people play the game, what are some things, like, let's say, like 3 common mistakes that you see agents make when they get their real estate license and they come to you and say, like, hey, Mike, like, I'm ready to be a real estate agent?
I can get into the mistakes, but there's really 3 things they need to do. They need to get out of bed early, put on professional clothes, and get their credit card out and get a coach.
Yeah.
That's a great start. But really, agents need to treat being a sales associate as a career. If you look at it long term, if you're in it for the long game, you're in it as a career, you can do incredible things as an agent. If you're just in it for a job, to handle some listings of friends and neighbors and relatives every now and then, that's another story. And that's okay if that's what you want. But if you really want to succeed, you have to treat it as a career.
That's so interesting. I think that's beautiful advice, which is like treating it as a craft. I know me and you, we have a very kind of commonality in that we appreciate excellence. And we both see it a lot in sports, right? We both like Tom Brady a lot. And I know you have, there it is, the man himself. I love it, bro.
I knew he'd get called in here.
Yep. And I know you got Mickey Mantle's bat behind you. So, we really appreciate and admire, right, excellence, and particularly sustained excellence. So I think it's very interesting, like, you with all of your experience, basically saying to agents, like, listen, if you treat this as a craft, right? If you treat it as a profession, like a skill to be mastered, that you can really do incredible things as an individual sales associate, correct?
There's no barriers. I mean, I remember when I was in the city, there's barriers everywhere I went. There was a salary range. So for me, and it was very narrow. no matter how great of a review I could possibly get, I could only make X amount no matter what. And in real estate, okay, granted, there's not as many paid benefits. There's not a guaranteed paycheck. And that's big. But, if you put your mind to it and you follow a lot of the guidelines that we at Liberty try to instill, and what you're doing right now, Aaron, with so many of your agents, the sky is the limit. There's no one that can tell you, hey, you're in this salary range. This is all you can make. And if you're consistent, and that's really that you and I always talk about that, being consistent. You could have a great month. You could even have a great year. But can you do that year in, year out? That's really what separates the top 3% of the agents. They're doing 100%. It consistently.
Yeah, I agree with you 1,000,000%. And I wrote down a few things here, like, as you were saying that, I'm aware that there's no kind of security, in our game, as you're mentioning, like a salary and benefits. There's only opportunities.
Correct.
And what's true is if you can get your skills to a certain degree, then whenever there's an opportunity that presents itself, there's a very high degree of probability, like 80-90% of the time, I'm going to be able to capitalize on that opportunity. I've just created security for myself and my family. Right. So, and then the other thing I think you mentioned, which is interesting, is this idea of consistency, right? Where real estate can provide for people, the kind of commissions can be large, and somebody can do, I don't know, in your geographic area where the average commission is like $12,000-15,000, they can do 5 or 6 deals.
Right.
And just like make enough, just to get by. And what I hear you saying is if you consistently don't treat it like an ATM machine that whenever you need money, you just kind of pull it to get some money and then, you do something else. But instead you consistently work, consistently do the activities that lead to income, right. Then you're not limited by this kind of income range.
Yeah, like one of our agents, newer agent too, closed a huge transaction and made an $80,000 commission. And, I told him, I said, listen, you're starting from zero the next day. Like, do not go on vacation, do not do anything, bank the money, buy some real estate, but just keep on moving forward because it's easy to get distracted. I mean, I'd be the same way if an $80,000 check just flew in like that. I mean, you're tempted. It's not easy to stay on that track.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you say that because, one of the things that I'm very well aware of is having enough reasons that would cause you to consistently continue to produce, at that level. So, if people were to follow me and to follow you really, and then watch us kind of work, they would think that we were broke.
Exactly.
Well, right? They're like, dang, man, like you're prospecting on a Saturday and then doing this podcast afterwards, and you have appointments after that. Like, you don't have to do that, right? Like, what are you doing, right? But it's just having really powerful reasons that cause you to not, get complacent, and not complacent from a materialistic perspective, but instead complacent just from an output perspective.
100%. It's interesting because, everyone looks up to certain people as examples, as mentors. And, the people I look up to, they got boatloads of money. They're doing tons of business. They own tons of real estate. They keep grinding. They keep working like they're broke. And I say, man, they could just, what are they doing that for? But that's the drive that makes them successful. And it's on every level, really. Maybe there's someone looking at me like saying, hey, why is Bernie still coming in early in the morning? Like, he doesn't have to. But I feel like I have to, no matter what. And I look at the people that are mentoring me, and I'm thinking the same thing. I'm thinking, why are they coming in at 6, 7 in the morning?
Yeah.
But you have to, that consistency is so important, that discipline, the accountability.
Now, I think you guys do one of the, because, now that I have the good fortune of, speaking to offices and kind of coaching, agents, 7 of which earn 7 figures, I'm being invited into these, real estate offices on a regular basis. And one of the things that you guys, I think, do an amazing job at is not only cultivating relationships. I think you guys are very intentional and purposeful with regards to that, but you also create this awesome culture of being proactive. and sales and sales skills, and you bring people like me in to lead prospecting schools and to train your agents. I'll be up there in a week doing a prospecting school and then teaching an advanced kind of listing presentation class. So I guess talk to me a little bit about that competitive advantage that you have, like how that developed over time and what that allows you guys to do in the marketplace as a company in terms of listings sold and things of that nature.
You know, we realized a long time ago, and we were probably, not to brag, but we were probably one of the first companies in our area that recognized the importance of listings and proactively getting listings. And when I started in real estate, no one taught us this stuff. You know, we kind of waited around in the office, did our uptime, got deals here and there, but we weren't, I'll call it classically trained now to go out and proactively get business. And thank God we learned how to do that, because that's how we've survived. And there can't be anything more important in our business as brokers, as agents, to have listings, because, you know, we joke around, we say lister's king, but, you know, it's almost like having your store, you're stocking the inventory with listings. And the beauty of it is, it's not even really costing you any money like it would be for a jewelry store or
right.
You know, a car dealer. You know, they spend millions on inventory, you know, stocking their store. You know, we don't really spend any money on inventory. I mean, we have our overhead, okay? Not going to forget about that. But for an agent, it's your own personal store, and you're stocking listings here and listings there and listings there. And you could be out at your kids' you know, soccer game, and you'll get the call on your phone, hey, got an offer on this listing. And then the game begins, you know,
yeah.
But you got to have the listings. So that's the culture we started. That's the culture we believe in, and we follow it.
You do, 1,000%. And you spend time, energy, effort, and resources, which is rare, to really continue to infuse that into your agents. And, you know, it reminds me of, you know, those 4 kind of noble truths we talk about, and one of them being that all the leverage is on the listing side. And you guys firmly get that and create an environment for, you know, the agents who choose to really take advantage of that and become dominant, you know, listing agents in the marketplace.
And I'm glad you just said choose to, because I want to stress, we don't force this on any agents. We only provide the map, the roadmap on how to be successful getting listings. And we'll show a lot of different ways to get there, and it's up to the agent. We don't want every agent, all 300 of our agents, to be calling, prospecting. We don't want that. We want agents that love to sell. You know, that's fine. And the agents that are prospecting, we really want them to be refined and be experts at what they're doing, because it is a craft that requires a skill set that has to be mastered over years, actually. Years. And you know that as well as anyone, right? People think it's easy. It is a skill that takes years to master, and if you can even ever master it.
That's right. Yeah. So, you know, it's interesting because, you know, when I'm role playing with people or they see me kind of, you know, interact or during a training session, you know, I gently remind them that what you get rewarded for in public is what you spend countless hours doing in private.
Right.
So like what they're seeing is the culmination of maybe like 15,000 hours worth of practice and actually doing the real thing.
Right.
Right. So it can sound super conversational because I've done it so many times.
Right.
And, you know, what I think is interesting too is that, you know, those agents, I'm curious from your perspective, I'm imagining that those agents who are implementing some form of active, proactive prospecting in their business are the ones predominantly who produce at the higher levels. Would you agree with that?
There is 100% correlation. This is not fake news. This is the real deal.
Yeah.
Like, if you follow the skills and the systems that you and the Novello coaching and your training and Liberty Realty, if you follow the skills and the systems, for sure, it's going to correlate into building your business.
Yeah, like without question. Not like maybe, not possibly, not like, you know, we'll see if it works out. It's very predictable and duplicatable.
100%.
Yeah, so I guess I'm curious because I'm imagining something else you deal with, which I think people could get some insight from your perspective. I've personally never kind of experienced this because I don't do this, but I'm aware some agents do, is they kind of hop around, right? From company to company. And they kind of imagine that if I change my t-shirt, like that's going to make like this huge kind of impact in the quality of my business, or they get caught up maybe like on splits and things of that nature. So I guess my question to you would be is, what are some of the kind of mistakes or kind of inaccurate assessments of reality that agents make typically that you see with that kind of bouncing around or the selection process of a kind of firm to align themselves with?
We do see agents bouncing around, and I used to take it personal. I don't anymore. I understand it's business, and it happens with Apple. A top Apple IT person will go to Microsoft. A top Tesla person will go to Ford. It happens in every industry. What I would say the biggest mistake is, and changing the jerseys isn't always the right thing, like you say. I believe that. What I'll say is a lower split. Usually it's about a split, a commission split. It usually involves money. Sometimes you have to really take a step back and say, is a lower split at a Liberty Realty worth more than a higher split at XYZ? Is the support and the lead generation and the accountability and the training that I'm getting at Liberty Realty worth more than XYZ? And an agent has to believe that it is. Mm-hmm. And just like any company, we lose some agents, we gain some agents. We're all in the sandbox together. Hopefully we play nice with each other.
Yeah.
We try to. Look, I believe there's enough business to go around for everyone.
Yeah.
For the agents that are working, for the productive agents that are constantly trying to get better, working day in, day out, there's enough business for everyone. But changing the jersey, you really have to think long term about that. And we've had a lot of agents that have, not a lot, but some agents that have left Liberty and come back.
Yeah.
And if they leave on great terms with us, we'll always keep the door open. But that's happened too. So I think that agent just has to be very careful, think all their decisions through before they decide to change a jersey.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, man. And so I wrote down, as you were saying that, was, the mistake that they can make is they look at cost instead of just value.
Right.
Right. And the other thing that I think is interesting, and I'm curious to see kind of your thought on it, is what I see, and I mean this respectfully, right, and with love, is that some agents, instead of becoming better and adding more value so they can get more business, their thought process is how can I get more out of the little amount of business that I'm doing?
Right.
So it's a thought of contraction instead of expansion.
Right. And when we come across that a lot, and what we try to do.
Would you agree with that, by the way?
Yeah, there's many agents that do that. And what we try to do is then we'll set a goal for them, right?
Yeah.
Look, we want you to get a higher split. We want to pay you more money because if we're paying you more money, you're going to be more productive, right? Yeah. So we want to get them to a higher level of productivity where we can pay them more. So in that case, we will say, look, we'd be glad to meet your request for whatever it is, but you have to hit this and this by this and this date.
Sure.
And we'll help you get there. We're not going to let them sink out there. We want to help them to get to that point where we can pay them more.
Yeah. That makes total sense to me.
So that's how we look at that.
Now, I'm curious, and that's awesome. I think people will get a lot of value from that, and really those distinctions and being clear on that.
And also, now, if I can add, if they come to us and say, look, here's what I have planned. This is why I am asking for this, because I am going to accomplish this. That's like gold to us.
Yeah.
Instead of just saying, I want this.
Yeah.
Tell me what you're going to do, where you're going to be, what the plan is.
Yeah, it's kind of like makes me think of Jim Rohn, where he's like, you can't get rich on demand.
Right.
Like just because you like pick it and say like I want more money, like you might get an extra dollar an hour, but like you're not gonna become wealthy doing that.
Right.
What's more productive is to figure out. He also says like don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. Don't wish for less problems, wish for more skills. Like what's more productive is to think about how can I take responsibility for kind of my production level and what do I need to do to actually become better so I can earn more money.
Right.
Would you agree?
And one of the things we would tell them is listen to Aaron Novello.
Yeah.
Right? Go online and listen.
I've had the good fortune of working with you in a coaching capacity for almost a year now. And when I think about you, I think about this like just powerful salesperson with this amazing kind of work ethic and kind of intention, right, to serve and to help other people. Now, I'm imagining at the beginning of your journey that I'm not entirely convinced that that's who you were at that point. So I think what would be helpful or useful, to those who are listening is to perhaps hear your story, right? Like how it was at the beginning when you first got started into real estate.
Oh, yeah, great question. So, yeah, I started in real estate, sort of innocuously. I had been with a Fortune 300 company and traveling all over the world and was married and decided that my husband and I at the time had decided that I needed to take a step down and stay home. So we got to know each other. He's not around anymore, FYI. But this whole idea of taking a step down and starting real estate happened 14 years ago, and I'm here now. And you're right, it started at point A, and now it's all the way over here. So there's been a long time in between, and it's been a really great journey.
That's awesome. So, and I'm wondering, like, for you personally, because it sounds like you came, which I didn't actually know until you just shared that you came from a corporate background. So because of that, you were used to kind of a very, I'm imagining anyway, like an intense kind of schedule, an intense pace. I'm also aware that that's kind of who you are as a human because I've gotten to know you very well. So what was your experience kind of transitioning into the business of selling real estate?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, it was, so coming from a Fortune 500 background where, you've got stockholders wanting to know what's going on and how you're going to provide value. Because really, at the end of the day, that was what every boss I ever had wanted to know about. It transitioned well into to real estate because I don't have stockholders now, but I have folks that have made their biggest purchase in their lifetimes. They're trusting me with that now. So that, it transitioned well because I came from one to the other. But the great news is I'm my boss now. I don't have to talk to anybody else about how I spend my time. And the better part of that is I feel like my time is now well spent because in the past I was on conference calls and I was having to account for my actions all the time. And I don't have to do conference calls now. I certainly have to talk to all of my clients all the time, but it's not, all of my actions are well spent now versus having to sort of CYA in the past, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense to me. And I wrote down a few things here, which is very interesting, is I'm imagining that background, that intense kind of focus on outcomes and having to be accountable for those outcomes on a regular basis actually was a competitive advantage, because I'm aware in our kind of industry as a whole, because we're independent contractors, typically that is not the type of environment that agents have. So because you had that up front, you came into this with kind of the mindset and kind of background of being outcome oriented and intensely focused on those outcomes. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And what a great parallel to make.
Yeah. So, and then I'm wondering, so you had that, right? You had this kind of intense focus on outcomes, recognizing that you needed to be held accountable for producing those outcomes. And now you're no longer accountable to perhaps maybe like a boss or a CEO or shareholders. Instead, you're accountable to yourself and your clients. So you had that, which I think is a distinct competitive advantage. And then what kind of pieces of the puzzle do you think were critically important to helping you to kind of scale up, right? And go from being like somebody who was, again, politely aggressive and really wanted to produce at a high level to somebody who actually does?
Oh, great question. So I think two things, and obviously this has been a journey. It wasn't something that happened overnight, but having to be accountable for a certain, making a certain amount of money for investors transitioned easily into getting into real estate, because obviously now I'm in charge of my own paycheck. And so, in addition to the fact that I have to pay my mortgage and all of those things from selling real estate, I also understand about how to work from 9 to 5 and do the things that have to happen to make all of these realities come true.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And then as far as kind of you beginning to like get into the nitty gritty of selling real estate, like was your experience right out of the gate that you just started to do deals? Or was it something that you kind of, failed forward, so to speak, like kind of tried some things, they didn't work, and then began to kind of drift in a direction of someone who perhaps they could give you some more information that's accurate, and then you were able to produce the outcomes?
So I didn't really have a choice. When I started real estate, I had to make a paycheck. I had to pay the mortgage and do the car payment and all those things. So my experience was from the minute I started that I had to start good and strong, because, not having a paycheck versus not making a paycheck wasn't an option for me. So we had to start strong. It wasn't a choice for me.
I see. And then when you started, were you working with both kind of sellers and buyers, or like were you working with rentals? Like what was kind of that mix at the beginning?
Oh, yeah. So I've never really done the rental thing. I've always worked with buyers and sellers. That's been our thing. We probably are going to, at some point this year, work with rentals, but at this point, it's just buyers and sellers.
Okay, so just buyers and sellers. That's awesome. And so you came into this, right, with intention. It sounds like the other thing I wrote down is that it wasn't really an option. It sounds like perhaps based on some personal circumstances, we had to begin to generate income, which I think is a competitive advantage in a way. For some people who they don't have to, because perhaps maybe somebody in their household or whatever is an additional income earner or supports their household based on their income alone, that lack of urgency actually is a disadvantage versus an advantage. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and there's so much more I think about that. Like you have to learn how to communicate with people, and you have to learn how to and communicate on their level. So there's so much stuff that comes at you in terms with regard to real estate. We have so many different things. A deal falls through. We have all these contingency things that all these milestones that we have to meet, and as we're meeting those, stuff comes out of left field, and we as real estate agents have to learn how to be able to communicate that in an effective manner. And I think that's something that is uber important in our industry in general. And I don't know that I've always been as good at it as I'm learning to. And I obviously we learn every day, but it's so important to learn how to communicate with people in the right way, so first of all, so they understand, and in a way and on the level that they understand. I don't know if I'm making sense when I say that, but that we have so many things that come at us from every different direction in our industry, whether it's a lender, whether it's a home inspection, whether so many things. And we have to learn how to be able to communicate all of that stuff effectively with our clients so they understand, and we can help them to move forward to the next step.
Yeah, it makes sense. So, one of the things I talk about when I do these talks in front of companies is that I call them the Four Noble Truths. And one of them is that the money's not in the service, it's in the selling of the service. Right? So it doesn't mean we don't give people good service, but it just means that our ability to be able to generate income is not per se in the service that we provide. It's really in our ability to be able to sell the service. And what I'm taking out of what you're saying here is that, you're talking about communication. And essentially, what I've learned, and it sounds like you have as well, is that's a skill. It's no different than like learning how to play the violin. It's no different than becoming a physician or getting a PhD in a particular topic. So I guess I'm curious for you personally, like, what have you done over time to intentionally and purposefully work on that skill? Because I'm aware, because again, I've gotten to know you very well. You're a powerful person. And I'm imagining that your tendency in the past was perhaps just to kind of, like tell people stuff, and learning that like, okay, well, if I tell them, they'll debate with me. However, if I ask questions and then I can get them to kind of tell me, then they're never going to argue with their own information. So I guess for you personally, like, what has that been like? Like, what has been the patience required for you to do that? Because I'm aware that that's not your natural disposition. And, what have you worked on skill? Like, how have you been intentional around that skill of communication?
Well, I'll 100% tell you part of the answer to that question is coaching with you, because it's helped me to take a moment and step back and have a breath while I'm explaining things. A lot of stuff, and especially right now, isn't so exciting to have to relay to a buyer or a seller. And so, having a moment to think about how I'm going to relay this information, then as I'm relaying it, to relay it in a meaningful way to that person has been helpful. 3 times today alone, I've had to deliver some really unexciting news. And, 3 times today, it's been a different way that I've been delivering it, so that the people that I'm delivering the information to understood it, and then gave them a minute to sort of internalize it. And then they had a chance in a meaningful way to make a response so that we could go back to the other side. And so that whether we lose the deal or whether we save the deal, being able to have this meaningful conversation so that they can internalize what's going on and figure out what the best way for them is to move forward.
Yeah,
that's
awesome.
been important.
Yeah, so I'm taking a few things from you, like as you're sharing that, is like, one, as you're describing it, one of the skills of that ability to be able to communicate is to make the focus on them, not on you.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. And, the tendency in the past, particularly for agents that are newer or depending on where they are in their journey, is, a byproduct of insecurity is to want to talk about yourself. And also, if I'm not generating on a regular basis and I don't have a lot of things in the pipeline, I can be overly attached to outcomes.
Right.
So then that inhibits my ability to be able to really, deliver that information in such a way that it's focused on them, right? Because it's kind of tainted by my own personal kind of desires, right? So one is focusing on them. And then 2, I'm also hearing you say things like, being conscious and aware of who you're speaking to, right? Because I know, like, when in our coaching relationship, I learned very quickly that there's a particular way that I can challenge you. And when I challenge you, Anna sits up like immediately. and when that happens, it's like, bro, you better step back, because like it's going to come 100%. So, but I know that with other people that perhaps I coach and work with, like, that's the way that the way that Anna like responds to that particular challenge. It might not work with other people. So, like, how do you go about distinguishing that when you're having communication with people, when you're talking to them, like, okay, this is somebody who perceives it this way, or this, like, I have to deal with them or say this thing to them because it's who they are as a person and they'll receive it better?
I think part of it, I think all of it is listening to them. It's about what they have going on. And, when I'm delivering my message, I'm trying to deliver it slowly and efficiently so that they can bring it in, and then ask questions like, I hope I'm making sense, or do you have questions about this, or is there something I can do to help you understand the situation better? Whatever whatever the situation is, just ask questions and be present in the conversation. And these things seem so simple, but they really aren't simple. This is a biggest transaction most people make in their lifetime. And when something comes out of the blue and a situation comes out, so say for instance, the VA just required this credit score to go up to 680. I have a situation where the buyers were at 640, and this came up in the middle of the transaction. Really, really painful. Yeah. And the sellers, while they want to sell their house, they are also buying a house. So this is a domino effect. So being able to have these kind conversations where and they're frustrated. I get it. At the end of the day, I can't give them any information right this second because we have to wait for the bank, but allowing them to be able to vent for a few minutes and just listening to them is so valuable. And, we'll have an answer on Monday and which is great, but not now.
I thought it would be cool to kind of begin our conversation with your journey, right? Because I'm aware I met you at kind of the beginning of that journey when you were
probably a year in. I was been a real estate agent for about a year and a half when I met you.
That's right.
And now I've been doing it over 10 years. So yes, we have known each other for a while.
For a long time, man. So, and at the beginning of that journey, kind of, what were you doing at that point? Because now you're selling over 100 homes a year, and it's very profitable, and it's a duplicatable, predictable business. But at the beginning of that journey, kind of, where were you at? Like, what was your experience up until that point? Kind of, what was your main mechanism for trying to get business?
Until we met, or just in the beginning in general?
In the beginning, yeah.
So I started out, I was 24. It was 2009.
Yep.
And I got licensed in August or September, right around there. And I heard that the real estate market wasn't doing very good, but it was kind of like ignorance, like not knowing any better. I didn't know how bad it actually was in comparison to other like down markets. So I was like young and excited, and I was just like doing whatever like my coach and my broker told me to do. And I didn't realize how hard it was to get a client. Like just something no one explained to me before I became a real estate agent. That's like the most important and hardest part. So like I looked really young and the market wasn't doing very good. And very frequently I'd meet with people. They'd be like, how old are you? How long have you been doing this? So just between my age and the timing and lack of experience, it was a rough start. But I was fortunate enough that, I'd come back from college. I worked for my brother as a contractor for like a year or two, and I realized manual labor. Like I didn't go to college, do manual labor the rest of my life. Moved back into my mom's house, so I had a free rent, which was extremely helpful, and not like having to have anxiety over like when's my next check coming.
Sure.
So I was very fortunate that I had the support of my family in getting going. Because if I didn't, there's no way I could have done it. My first year, I lost money. Like I spent more like making business cards and getting everything set up than I actually made. And then the second year I broke even. And then the third year I started to see a profit, but it probably wasn't even like a normal salary. So it was probably around like 4 years in before I like started to like actually like see good returns from it. But essentially like I was just doing what my trainer and coach and broker did to get business, which was outbound cold calling to sale by owners, expireds, staying in touch with my center of influence. I feel like that's just kind of like standard. I'm sure every real estate agent has been told that. But I would say for the first year, like either I was not good at it yet or whatever it may be. I took a couple expired listings in 2010. None of them sold. So in 2010, my first full year, I sold 13 houses, and one was a $40,000 listing that I double-ended. And I looked, my second house I ever sold was $19,000. Like,
that's awesome.
I pretty much was like, I will go anywhere and do anything for experience. I was probably in parts of town I shouldn't have been, just like I wanted experience and I didn't care how I get it. I remember taking a listing that was like almost an hour away just because it wasn't expired and I didn't care. It didn't sell either, but I had experience of meeting with people and talking to them about real estate, and that's all I cared about at the beginning.
Yeah, so like super hungry, and I wrote a few things down. Like the first one is that you started in the game very young, right? I was similar, around 26 when I got started. So some people might look at you now and say like, wow, Alex, he's selling all these homes and everything.
At the same time, how are you so successful?
Yeah. At the same time, I mean, that's because you've spent 10 years of time, energy, effort, resources to learn, right, how to do that. The other thing I wrote down, which I think is very interesting as well, is just this idea of patience. you mentioned that your first year didn't make any money. Second year kind of broke even. Third year made a little bit. It wasn't until like maybe 4 years before it started to become like a profitable venture. And I'm aware that a lot of agents, particularly ones that are newer, they kind of imagine that like, okay, right out of the gate, this is going to be something that's like smashingly successful. And that was not your experience, was it?
No, and if I had to guess, it's probably similar to most real estate agents' experiences.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some out there that maybe had like a large network because they were like had another job and they knew a lot of people in town. I was young. I only knew other 24-year-olds. Like, so I didn't really have that resource.
Yeah, 100%. And it took you consistently and intentionally and purposefully staying in the game with some help. I wrote down support as well. You had some key people supporting you and helping with expenses and things of that nature. But then you also made a dedication to the craft, right, of actually learning how to sell. And that's actually how we connected with one another, isn't it?
I remember like how I found out about you. Someone told me that, yeah, this guy, Aaron Novello, he's very successful. He sells over 100 houses a year and he role plays 2 times a day. And my mind was like, I only thought you could do it once. And I'm like, he's young, he's successful. I want to get in his role play schedule. And I called you. And that's how, like, well, you said, it's full, call me in 6 months. Called you 6 months later. And you're like, all right, Tuesdays at 7 a.m. And then again, I was like, I role played 7:30. That's 7's too early. Like, I was like scared. And like, I remember the first time I called you for my first role play, I was terrified because I didn't really know you yet. And like, you were super successful. And when I talk on the phone, you're like quick and efficient. And it was a little intimidating to like a young, like unsuccessful realtor at that point.
Yeah.
But I was extremely thankful that you gave me the opportunity. And like, not only you, but like the majority of what I learned and how to do what I do came from other realtors like you that spent the time just talking on the phone, role playing, hey, I have this problem. What would you do in this circumstance? Like more experienced agents giving back to me. And now that I'm fortunate enough to be in this position that I'm like, anytime anyone calls me for any reason, I'm happy to talk to them for whatever, if they're a realtor and they're looking for advice. So
I love that, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's very beautiful and kind of this very symbiotic relationship because I'm aware that, perhaps, I provided you with that opportunity. And then you did something very kind for me, which is that you recorded one of those role plays and then it like went like wildfire, right? Around kind of the real estate community.
I recorded it so I could go back and transcribe it because like you used the scripts, but you made them your own and I liked them better. I couldn't explain why. And at that point, I thought like if you say a certain combination of words in a certain order, you get a specific result.
Yeah.
I was just kind of imagining that. And I'm like, he's successful and I like the way he does it. So I did it purely out of transcription. And then I was talking about you to one of my role play partners and he's like, hey, can I listen? Didn't think anything of it. I was like, sure. And I passed it to like 1 or 2 people. And then I guess they passed it. And all of a sudden, like everyone knew who you were.
Yeah, which was very helpful. So again, it's like this symbiotic, very cool thing where like, perhaps when you help somebody else out, they help you out in return. So I appreciate that. Thank you kindly.
I wasn't even like, at first when you like asked me about it, I was like, uh-oh, am I in trouble? I shouldn't have done that or.
No, but it worked out beautifully well. So it took about 4 years to get to a place where it was kind of profitable for you, right? Like actually kind of making sense from a financial perspective. And then what I'm aware of is over time, you kind of utilized initially, that kind of hardcore beat the bushes, expired for sale by owners. And then as time progressed and you kind of built up that database, we began to, in our work together in a coaching capacity, shift, right, from that activity to really centering on this idea of 2 different worlds, like the physical world and then the digital world. Because I know 50% of your business comes from past client centers of influence and the other 50 from people finding you online now. So I guess walk me through that transition, walk me through like how that happened for you, right?
It happened because as much as I did like cold calling, and I pretty much ended up niching with expireds.
Yeah.
I did have a few for sale by owners here and there, but like I got good at expireds and there was enough of them that I pretty much just concentrated all my efforts on that. But I never enjoyed it. Like I kind of like dreaded it. Like, like this thing I just have to do and I'll do it. And like, it worked. Like I even counted one day when I was like getting tired of doing it, I looked back and it was like 50 to 60 closed transactions over a couple of years just from expireds. And I looked how much money that was. And I did that from the purpose to try and inspire me to like keep doing it. But like deep down in my like core, I didn't really like it still. So I think once I got to a point where my business was kind of, I didn't need to cold call expireds to survive anymore, just because I had enough of a sphere. I was getting referrals. Back when like Zillow started doing reviews, I remember like a light bulb went off and I was like, I buy everything on Amazon based on the reviews. I just knew like this is going to be important. So I went back at everyone I ever worked with to leave me a review. And I got like this huge jump start in having reviews on Zillow before anyone else knew it had reviews. And I think that was a huge, like that was just a little bit of luck, a little bit of timing.
Yeah.
And I got a ton of business from people saying they found me online for my reviews. So eventually, I'd been doing it long enough that enough business started to come to me without me really even like doing much different. And I was just slowly, naturally stopped calling expireds as much I just didn't call them at all.
Yeah, which is awesome. I really
like, you need to call them. And I'm like, okay. And then next week we talk, like, how many did you call? And I'll be like, none. Sorry. Like, I just didn't.
Well, and it was very cool because, again, in a very symbiotic way, like it forced me as well to get creative, right? Because we just came to this recognition. It's like, look, like, for Alex, this isn't something that perhaps like, he enjoys, yet we still need to prospect, right? Because a day not spent prospecting is a day not spent in business. So how can we begin to get creative and find out other ways of prospecting that Alex really feels comfortable? And that's precisely what we've done over time. So, we went from, I guess, where expireds were this primary source. Again, that's awesome business, like 60 deals over a course of time. It's like probably 10 or 15 a year were coming from that source. And then we began to have this conversation about like the physical world and the digital world, because they're two worlds that we live in now. So perhaps if you could, like for those listening or watching, describe to them those two worlds, and then describe to them some of the things that we've done intentionally, very purposefully, to position yourself strongly in those two worlds so they become a stream of leads for you.
So I guess starting with the digital world, like I'm just kind of like a computer nerd, like gadget geek at heart. And the fact that I had like a really good online presence to start, I had all the reviews, like I guess instead of prospecting, calling expireds, I spent my time as a very analytical researching what can I do to make my online presence better. That's even before we had this conversation and where we transitioned to like what I'm doing now. I kind of was already doing it, but you just made me aware of the two worlds so we could do it more purposefully.
Yes.
So like there'd be a whole probably another podcast series for me to go in depth on all like the techie digital internet stuff I've done. But when it comes to like back down, I guess to like the real world, I guess I got comfortable in the digital world, and you wanted to make sure I was in both by, being in front of people. And I don't know how it exactly like kind of all came to be, but we were talking about, you would recommend it for me to go and like interview a local business owner and video it. And I was like, heck yeah. Like I love doing that. I love video. Let's go do it. And I didn't realize you were tricking me into prospecting by doing that.
That's right.
So I guess it was probably about a year ago it really got started. We were trying to figure out a name of it, and we're bouncing names back and forth. And I was like a little like, there's no good name. Let's just worry about it later. And then like 5 minutes into the call, I was just like, I really just want to share with everyone why Richmond is awesome. And you're like, that's it. That's the name of the video series. So a lot of it kind of happened just from us bouncing ideas back and forth, a little bit organic, a lot of bit of like purposeful planning. But now in addition to like the reviews and the website and the SEO, I'm doing a video series where I am interviewing local businesses, whether it be restaurants or things to do, doing it at a very high production level. I don't know. I guess you probably would say a reason I'm doing a lot of what I'm doing. I have a full-time videographer on staff now. We're making so many videos. And a lot of stuff, even though I liked it, like I still had resistance because I'm like, no, I like making the videos. I don't want to hire someone. I want to do it. And you're like, no, like too time consuming. So
Yeah.
definitely took a little bit of guidance from you for me to do it efficiently. And I still get to participate. I'm like the director producer. I don't have to like sit there and edit everything for hours.
Yeah, which is, I think, a perfect role for you, right? To be in that position, and making that intentional shift, right, to recognizing that more and more people or consumers are making decisions about who they're going to hire, either for a service or what product they're going to purchase by consulting the internet first. What I find very interesting about that, being that you had that professional athlete background, is prior to getting into this game, like you understood like practice, you understood like discipline, right? So, so if you could, like, how was that actually really helpful for you in terms of transitioning into residential resale brokerage?
That's a great question, because when I got done playing baseball, I'd been buying investment properties in the off seasons, duplexes, single family, stuff like that. So I got out of baseball. I hurt my knee, got out of baseball. Didn't really know what to do because I went to school to play baseball, right? I had one singular focus. And when I was done playing baseball, I went and started managing my properties. Found out real quickly how bad I was at that, and decided to get into residential sales because I started looking at, I like to talk to people, I like to be around people, and so that was the next logical step for me. So got into real estate, and then literally 2 months after getting my license, was fortunate enough to run into a broker who got me involved with coaching. And that was a complete game changer for me, because growing up in the sports arena for my entire life, I knew one thing is that I needed to be told what to do and how to do it. So
yeah, and that's huge, right? Because I feel like I find it very interesting that even as a professional athlete, it could have been very easy for you, because I'm imagining, kind of coming up, that you were always like the man, right? You probably the man in high school, and like you're really good in, the collegiate level, and then made it to the pros. So it's very easy for you to get like an ego and kind of say like, come on, man, like I got this sort of thing, right?
Oh, for sure. We still have battles today, me and my ego.
Yeah, but that willingness to kind of say like, okay, yeah, like I understand, I need somebody to point out to me what this game actually is and what I need to be focusing on and what kind of skills I need to be developing is huge as far as being successful at the game. So then you got that instruction, right?
Yep.
You got a clear, accurate assessment of reality as to what this game was and what you needed to do to be successful. So talk to me about kind of that trajectory for you. Like once you got that assessment, like how did things grow from there?
So I think my first full year in real estate, I think I did 21 transactions, something along those lines. Just trying to figure it out and understand what it was really about, and doing things at a high production level. And so 21 transactions, I think 3 years later, that was 2006, 2007. I think it was 50, 75. And then after my fourth year, I think I hit 100 transactions moving forward. So.
Yeah, it's awesome. I remember you like in your brain, you were like 100, 100, 100, 100, 100, just being like obsessed with that 100.
Yeah.
And then I'm aware instantaneously it jumped in your, because that's the other thing that I think about you, brother. When I think about Eric, I think about like just monster, like big thing. And I was aware at the time, like we were both around that 100 transaction mark. And immediately, as soon as you hit it, you were like, what's up with 200?
Right. Well, it's interesting, is that when you achieve the goals that you set, nothing becomes enough. So I think it's really important, as, I learned this playing baseball, is that you don't place your self-worth inside of your goals. Right. So my goal was always to be a professional athlete. I achieved that. And when I achieved that, I was like, geez, this isn't all where's all the balloons and streamers, that are supposed to be every time I wake up, flying, right? So, I think it's important that we understand that a goal is just a goal, and there doesn't need to be an attachment to it. It's just something that we have the gift and ability to wake up every day and shoot for, because we have the God-given ability to go out there and walk the walk. So when you look at that number, right, it's just a number. Like I hit 100, I was like, okay, cool, let's go do it again. So and those things adjust, right? So now I'm into a lot of investing and a lot of different things. So now my goal is, okay, tailor my personal production down to 75, but keep my income the same. So how do I do that? And then add in doing the investing piece to that, because when you give something in one arena, you're going to take from another.
I appreciate that, man. That's wisdom right there. I remember watching Time versus Tom.
Mm-hmm.
It's like maybe 2 Super Bowls ago with regards to Tom Brady. And he said something in this video which really struck me. He said, you can have anything you want in life, but you can't have everything.
That's right.
and he said, we have a limited amount of time.
Yep.
So the other thing he said, which I thought was very interesting, is that when you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to something else.
Correct. You are definitely saying no. Yep. Whatever it may be, you're going to give, and whether that's, our coach says, what are you willing to give up? And that's an interesting question. I didn't really grasp that question for a number of years because he said it for a long time, and he said, well, what are you willing to give up? Well, I'm willing to give up my sleep. I'm willing to do this, whatever it may be. Right. But you don't really grasp the magnitude of that until you're down the line.
Yeah.
You just don't grasp the magnitude of it until you're down the line,
Yeah.
So.
Or until you're confronted with like, oh, I'm aware that I was giving up all this stuff, but I'm not willing to give up that.
Right. For sure.
Right. And that's an interesting kind of experience. And then the other thing I'm aware of, which I wrote down here as you were speaking, like for you, it sounds like, which is true for me too, is it's really about like evolving. It's like who you become in the pursuit of that goal and objective, that the goal and objective is it's just like a carrot, and getting the carrot, like I never get it because I imagine like this carrot like in front of me, just dangling in front of me all the time, and I'm always running after it. But B, who I become will either make me very happy or very sad. So it's like, who am I in the process of becoming in pursuit of the thing that I want? Like that's the thing I got to be conscious of, right?
Right, and those are strong words. Wow, because I think the interesting part for me has been understanding how that process works, right? Because the less I've become attached to my goals and to the outcomes that I want to achieve, the easier they come to me. Right? So the less that how do I put this without confusing everybody beyond belief? The less that I desire and need those things, the easier they flow. Because when I get my ego out of the way saying, Eric did it, because look, I'm just not that good. When I get my ego out of the way, right, and I push myself aside and just let it happen, things come to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And what it makes me think about is something I've heard Jim Rohn say multiple times is success is something that you attract by the person that you become.
Totally.
Which is totally true. And then the other thing I wrote down, which I heard you say, which I think is key there, right? Because I think a lot of people get confused with regards to this idea of being unattached. Mm-hmm. Because it's clear to me, because I mean, again, I've known you for a while, brother. Like you are, I don't want people to get mistaken. Like you want those goals and objectives. Like,
oh, sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, and that key there, that little shift is that I want it, but I don't need it.
Yeah. It's not me.
Right. Where like the needing part, like if I think I need something in order to be happy or centered or at peace or feel love or whatever, I'm going to go after it like this bleary-eyed maniac. Right. Versus recognizing like, no, man, like I have what I need. I have air, water, food, and shelter. I have some love in my life. Today. Those are great. And this is just something I want. And it's exciting to me because I like to create, I like to build, I'm a hunter, I like to put stuff together, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the interesting part is when you become that person that needs those things, people feel that and it becomes dirty to them. They will gravitate away from you because they'll feel that that nasty desire inside to just achieve and get the applause of doing those things, by applause from other people of, yay, Aaron, good job, man, way to close 100 deals, good job. And when you desire that return, right, it becomes ugly to everybody else around you.
Well, the biggest thing is my wife. She doesn't fly, and I got to make sure I have enough alcohol and enough pills to get her on that plane. So my decision not to have insurance